Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Tuesday. I hope your day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you as always for joining me. The voice is getting better. The after effects of Gabriel Martinelli's last minute equaliser on Sunday beginning to wear off now. It is getting back to normal. So that is all good, and I hope you're all very well on this Tuesday morning. Mikel Arteta is going to be speaking a little bit later on today at his press conference, 4:30pm. That is not a nice time for a press conference. Thank you very much, Mikel. Later on today, ahead of that game against Port Vale tomorrow, as Arsenal get their Carabao Cup campaign underway. So we know what he's going to be talking about. Certainly know one of the big things he's going to be talking about, and that is Noni Madueke's injury, which of course came as a bit of a bolt out of the blue for all of us yesterday when the news started to emerge that there was a genuine fear around Arsenal about a knee injury that Madueke suffered in the game on Sunday. It was the injury that of course saw him forced off at half-time, Bukayo Saka coming on to replace him. Mikel sort of speaking about it very, very quickly afterwards, said he had a bit of an issue during the game, had to come off at half-time. No one really thought anything more of it, thought I would be back in a week or something like that. And then suddenly there was rumours going around on social media yesterday that there was fears at Arsenal that he'd done his ACL and that there was scans and you know, if those fears were realised, he was going to be out for basically the season, which was pretty mad. When I first saw that, I was like, my God, you're kidding? That can't be right, is it? And so obviously started putting a few messages out. And very, very quickly, not just me, but you know, everyone in the sort of press pack started to get the same word back that it wasn't an ACL. The fear, you know, that he was having a scan yesterday, but Arsenal did not believe it was an ACL injury. Madueke didn't believe it was an ACL injury. So we got that news back pretty quickly yesterday, which was a bit of a relief. It's like, well, okay, that's worst case scenario avoided. But of course, he was still going for a scan, and there was still a very good chance that he was going to be out for a fairly big chunk of time with this knee injury. And now this morning, David Ornstein has reported on The Athletic that he believes Madueke is going to be out for about 2 months with this injury. Doesn't say if this is something that's going to force, if he's going to need to go under the knife for an operation. Mikel's going to give a bit of an update of it later on today at the press conference. That's the message we've got, is that Mikel will speak about it at the presser a little bit later on. 2 months, obviously, it's not worst case scenario. It's not a season. It's not an ACL, which is, I suppose, a positive, but it is still a big, big blow, this. A really big blow. First of all, for Madueke more than anyone else. You know, he's come to Arsenal under this sort of cloud of negativity about the signing, where there's so many people who are against the signing. You have petitions being signed from Arsenal fans not wanting this deal. And despite all of that, he came in and he's been a breath of fresh air since he arrived. He's been positive. Been really energetic. He's beaten his man. He's looked Arsenal's biggest threat so far this season when he's been on the ball. And he's just really, under all of that sort of negativity and pressure and scrutiny, has just taken it upon himself to, you know, inject some real energy into this Arsenal team. And he deserves huge credit for that. Huge credit for that. It shows the sort of mentality that he has to be able to deal with it and still be able to form. So for him to have that sort of positive start just completely stopped from something so innocuous, you know, an incident that no one even spotted, you know, just a really innocuous sort of landing after a challenge, it appears. To have that sort of momentum just completely killed, and now you're going to be out for 2 months. It's just a huge blow for him, first of all. So I feel really, really sorry for him. But from an Arsenal point of view, it's a massive blow as well. You know, no doubt about it. As I've said, he's been Arsenal's best attacker since this season, since he's joined. He's looked really, really lively. So that, from that point of view, it's a blow. But it's also a massive blow in terms of Bukayo Saka as well, because Saka's just come back from his own injury, come back from the hamstring. The last thing he really wanted to do was suddenly have to play Saka more than you really wanted to. And with Madueke on the side, you didn't have to do that because you had a player who's been playing really, really well, who can share the burden with Bukayo Saka, and you're not too worried about Saka not being in the team. But with Madueke not there, it's suddenly either Saka or it's a 15-year-old Max Dowman, who's obviously incredibly exciting, but he's only a 15-year-old. And then Ethan Nwaneri, who Mikel Arteta has shown very little sign of really wanting to play on the right-hand side again after he played him there last season. So it's just it's a blow on all levels for Arsenal, this. For Madueke, for the squad, for Bukayo Saka, for Mikel Arteta. It's just really, really disappointing news. So we'll wait and see what Mikel says on it a little bit later on today. But at least it's not worst case scenario. In the way Arsenal's luck with injuries have gone in the last sort of 12 to 18 months, you initially thought, oh, it is going to be the worst case. So the fact that he's avoided that is good, but it's still a big, big blow, no doubt about it. Look, there are 2 international breaks between now and the end of November. So that's, if there was no international breaks, it'd be even more games. So that's another sort of slight positive from it, I guess, that there are 2 international breaks that will sort of eat into his time on the sidelines. Maybe he comes back sooner than expected. I mean, there's that run after the second international break, I think, at the end of November, where it's Chelsea, Bayern, and then Spurs, where you would love Madueke back for those games, to have that option for him, because that's going to be such a demanding week. So maybe that's going to be the week that he targets. But I mean, you can't rush these things. We'll just have to wait and see on it. But let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. The injury to Madueke, how much of a blow is it? What do you think Arsenal should do in his absence? Is it time for Noni Madueke to go back to the right? Would you play Martinelli on the right? I mean, you've got the option of doing that now because you can play Eze on the left. Do you think Ballon, just throw him in, play him in these games, start him in the Premier League? Let me know your thoughts on it all in the comments below. Right, we'll talk about the Ballon d'Or now, shall we? It was obviously the Ballon d'Or ceremony yesterday, and lots and lots of Arsenal involvement in this. Dembele obviously won the award. Ousmane Dembele won the award for PSG, but there was lots of Arsenal success. Most notably for the women, of course. Mariana Caldente was second, Alicia Russo was third, Chloe Kelly was fifth, I think it was, and Leah Williamson was seventh. Emily Fox, Frida Manau, and Steph Cantley were all in the top 30 as well. So great success for the women's team. Renee Slegers was, she didn't win women's coach of the year, because Serena Wiegman won that, obviously. And Arsenal's women's team were named the Women's Club of the Year. So huge success for the women. Fantastic. Congratulations to them. I do feel it's really, really harsh that Russo or Caldente didn't win. I know technically, who's the best women's player in the world? It's probably Bonmati, but I just feel in this season, and I supposedly it shouldn't be really about successes and silverware and all that stuff, because this is technically votes for the best player in the world. But in a season when they've, especially for Caldente, she made the move from Barcelona, stepped out of her comfort zone, came to a new league, a new club. In that first year, she helps them win the Champions League. Plays such a huge role in transforming Arsenal, and we're helping them win the Champions League. Unbelievable season. And then obviously getting to the final with the Euros as well. And then you've got Russo, who won the Champions League with Arsenal, was so influential in that, and also was so influential in England winning the Euros. It felt like those two had such a good shout to be crown winners, but it wasn't to be. The voting process is what it is, and they came second and third. But still, fantastic achievement for all the women and the recognition they got in the ceremony yesterday. Victor Gyökeres won the Gert Müller Trophy for Striker of the Year because of all the goals that he scored. Obviously not with Arsenal, with Sporting and with Sweden as well, but he was recognised. I think he came 17th in the overall rankings for Ballon d'Or. Declan Rice was the only Arsenal player in the top 30. He was 27th, I think, as well. So there's lots of recognition for Arsenal at the Ballon d'Or ceremony, but congratulations to all the women. Brilliant, unbelievable season. You deserve all the credit that you get. But yeah, I feel a bit sad that neither Caldente or Russo got their hands on the trophy. But like I said, it is what it is. Let's move on to some questions and comments now before we wrap this one up. Actually, before I go into the questions and comments, I'll quickly talk about Port Vale. I will do more of a show on that tomorrow in terms of predicted 11, which is going to be really, really hard, by the way. But looking at what Mikel might well do, and he will talk about this in his press conference later on today, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it. And please do give me your starting 11s, not predicted 11s, your starting 11s for tomorrow's game. Let me know what you would do if you were in charge of this squad for this game against Port Vale. I'll pull some of them together and get them included in tomorrow's preview show, because I'd love to get your views and see how different they are in terms of how you would approach this game, who starts, who doesn't. Be really, really interesting. I think he will make wholesale changes. I think maybe... it depends on Hincapié. If Hincapié's injured and misses this game, then maybe Gabriel will play. Because I'm not sure who else plays as a sort of left-sided centre-back. You could play Calafiori, I suppose, but Calafiori's played so many minutes as well this season. So it'd be very, very handy if Hincapié is fit and can play in this game, because then you could just pair Hincapié and Mosquera together. Probably Ben White, if he's deemed fit enough to play 60 minutes on the right-hand side. You play MLS, I guess, as the left-back in that role. Then you bring in Norgard. You'd have Ethan Nwaneri. Maybe Mikel Merino could play that sort of left 8 role with Ethan Nwaneri playing in the central position. Max Dowman on the right. It'd be very interesting to see who plays up front in this game. Will it be Martinelli? Could he play Martinelli up front, or would he play Trossard there? So there's so many options for him. Eze's potentially an option. I mean, he hasn't started many games, so he could start this one. I was wondering as well about Bukayo Saka. It's like, well, he's just coming back. Does he need to get some minutes to get himself prepared for the Newcastle game? He got 45, of course, on Sunday. I mean, I would not be playing Bukayo Saka in this game, especially after the news of Madueke, but I imagine he'll be on the bench. But there's so many options for Mikel Arteta now. Even with all the injuries that Arsenal have got, he's still going to put out an incredibly strong side tomorrow. Might well just be, say, one player, potentially 2, who started against Man City, who could be in the 11 for this one. So there's so many things for him to think about, but let me know your thoughts on it. Please do in the comments below. Like I said, give me your starting 11, what you think he should do, and I'll pull them all together and get them included in tomorrow's show. Right, now I'm going to move on to some questions. I got one here from Lewis, who says, interested to hear an opinion on this. As much as I love the signing of Zubimendi, I think I'd drop him for the upcoming game at St James's. He seems to be nullified when it comes to coming up against an ultra-physical midfield. Dropping Rice into the 6, Merino left 8, then allows you to try and fit Eze into the number 8 role. Of course, there's an argument to say that Ethan or Eze would equally struggle against a physical midfield, but until we see it, we don't know for sure. I mean, there's a case for it. I don't think he'll do that. I think Zubimendi plays. I don't think Zubimendi has absolutely massively struggled against a physical midfield either. I didn't think he was bad against Manchester City. I didn't think he was bad at Anfield either. I think he really grew into the game in the second half against Bilbao, which was a very physical game as well, bit of a bruising game. So no, I'd be keeping it. I'd be making a change in that midfield, definitely, but I don't think it would be Zubimendi. I'd be keeping Zubimendi where he is, and then it'd be one of either Rice or Merino who would drop out for me, and I'd be bringing in an Eze or Nwaneri. And sort of on that sort of same conversation, I've got one here from Nigel Stewart. He says, when the final whistle blew, I had a chance to exhale on Sunday. My first thought was, great, that's the end of the starting midfield. I think he knows the combination is over. Dare I say it, though, on current form, I do think there's a conversation about Merino over Rice. And I think that's a really interesting point as well. I don't look at this as being Merino's fault, this midfield, at all. I just don't think the pair of them have been really working that well together in those positions. But I don't necessarily think that definitely means it has to be Merino who drops out. Merino seems to be the one getting the brunt of all the criticism at the moment, which I think is pretty unfair, to be honest. But you go back to the Nottingham Forest game, which Arsenal played very, very well and won very handsomely in that game. It was Rice who was left on the bench and Merino started, and Arsenal played well in that game with Merino playing in that role and Rice being on the bench. So I agree here. I don't think it necessarily has to be Merino who would drop out. I imagine it would be, because I can't see Mikel dropping Declan Rice for a game at St James's. But I think there's definitely, a fair shout to say maybe it should be Rice, because he hasn't started the season very well, Declan Rice, I don't think. I think he's very similar to last season. He started pretty slowly. I have absolutely no doubt that he'll be back to his best very, very soon and be an absolute guaranteed starter in this side. But at the moment, his form is not. It is a bit hit and miss. And so, I agree. I think there's definitely a conversation to have. I don't think it should 100% be Merino who drops out this weekend if Mikel does make changes. And to be honest, I don't think there's actually guarantee that he will. I still wouldn't be at all surprised if he plays the same midfield 3 at St James's Park, because of the sheer sort of physical battle that it is going to be. I hope he doesn't, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. So yeah, no, it's a good point, Nigel. Absolutely good point. I agree with you on that. There is a conversation to be had about it. Aura Freak says, hey Charles, after Sunday's game, I think it's safe to say everyone can see how much we miss Kai Havertz. It's always against the big teams we'll see Havertz starting, in my opinion. He's much more important than Gyökeres in those games. Yeah, look, if Havertz was fit, and I admit I was pining for Kai Havertz during that game on Sunday, watching it, how it was unfolding. I said it at the time and I got hammered by it in the comments, but I really felt like the plan would have been for these games at the start of the season that Havertz would have played the big ones. I really think he would have started at Old Trafford. I really think he would have started at Anfield, and I think he probably would have started against Manchester City, even though it was at home, because I just think he's that important to this Arsenal team, and I think Mikel Arteta still absolutely believes that, despite the signing of Victor Gyökeres. I think the Havertz injury has been a real blow to how Arsenal have started this season, especially in the big games and what Mikel Arteta was planning to do in those big games. I think it's also been a blow for Victor Gyökeres because he's been thrown straight into the deep end. And I know he's been signed to be this sort of be ready now type guy, and I get that, and I think he will be. But there is still a little. You've got to give everyone a bit of an acclimatisation period, and he's basically had none. He's just been thrown straight into it, and just has to sort of hit the ground running. He's done pretty well, 3 goals, fine. But I think Arsenal have missed Kai Havertz. Absolutely do think they've missed Kai Havertz. And I think he's such an important part of this team. And I think he still will be a hugely important part of this team when he comes back. And we will see that in the way that Mikel Arteta uses him. We could also have seen him playing in that left 8 role as well, which I think would have been, even if Gyökeres had started these games, if you had Havertz there rather than one of Rice or Marino, and you got Havertz and Gyökeres sort of dovetailing almost as a pair as well, I think that'd be a really intriguing aspect of how Arsenal are going to look to play as the season goes on as well. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I think we will see that a lot. So to not have that option either in these early weeks of the season, I think has been a real blow. So yeah, it is what it is when it comes to Arsenal. I've said that too many times. I sound like I'm on Love Island or something. It is what it is. But yeah, I cannot wait to see Kai Havertz back in action for Arsenal. Hopefully it will be sooner rather than later. And that's it from me today, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for listening. Like I said, Mikel Arteta's press conference a little bit later. Well, not even a little bit later on, quite a lot later on today. 4:30 p.m. getting underway at the Schober Realty Training Centre, London Colney. Of course, have a good day, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.